Trump arrived at the White House. Joe Biden hosted him in the Oval Office, and they shook hands. And here's a little rundown of what they said. Biden said, "I look forward to having a smooth transition. Welcome." Trump said, "Politics is tough and in many cases not a very nice world, but it's a nice world today." There was a lot more than that. I actually was watching the video while you were doing your interview just so I could get a sense of it. And it was awesome. Like, we are going to have a smooth transition. And I think it's just let bygones be bygones by both of them.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I watch them grow for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Isn't this beautiful? Can we all get along, Ron? I would love to think, can the ladies from The View see this? Can we get this footage to Sunny Hostin?
Their heads are exploding
Joy
watching
Reid,
that.
Can Joy Reid take a look at this? Rachel Maddow, everybody who's been at DEF CON 5 for the fate of humanity, because Donald Trump was elected with a popular vote majority and an electoral vote landslide. Well, landslide's a little heavy, but the guy got well over 300 electoral votes. Can we just get along? I mean, good for Joe Biden. Nice of Joe Biden to sit down and appease an authoritarian fascist wannabe Hitler. Do you think that they would let Hitler come to the White House and sit down with Joe Biden and shake hands?
Yeah,
it tells you all you need to know about how full of shit they are.
Yep.
How completely full of shit they are. Donald Trump, what we heard Kamala Harris say there, you know, what did we hear a few weeks ago? A couple of weeks ago, maybe, whatever it was. Donald Trump can't be trusted, all of this stuff, but now we're going to sit down and shake his hand. Yeah, he's a threat to democracy, but now we're going to shake his hand. Look, I'm all for it. That is normalcy. We used to see nice things done. George H.W. Bush left a very nice handwritten letter for Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton was inaugurated, that he found, just basically saying like, hey, this is a tough job, but you'll be okay. And I think he basically said, if you ever need my support or advice, just ask. At the end of the day, we need to remember at a certain point that we're all still Americans, Ron. I don't think that it's too late for that, but we need to remember that we're all still Americans, and it's been very easy for too many of us to forget that, given the political climate that we've had in this country. So, especially those on the left who think that the people on the right are their mortal enemies. And, you know, we'll continue to talk about that, I'm sure, Ron, but that is a nice scene to see at the White House. Tony Hinchcliffe. Kill Tony. You may remember him as the guy who made the joke about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage at the Madison Square Garden event that you either saw as a great beacon of hope for this country, or if you're from MSNBC, you saw it as the Nazis getting back together again and throwing themselves a party at Madison Square Garden. Tony Hinchcliffe was the guy who got called out by the left because of the joke that he made about Puerto Rico. And Tony Hinchcliffe is not walking it back. And by God, I give him my endorsement in this. We've got too many apologies in society today. People say stuff. How many times have we seen it? Somebody says something, they make a joke, they make a comment that's maybe a little out of the line of the sensibilities of the left, and they get pressured to apologize. Well, good for Kill Tony, because he's not having it. He says, I love Puerto Ricans. They're very smart people. They're smart. They're street smart, smart enough to know when they're being used as political fodder. He goes on to say, I apologize to absolutely nobody, not to the Puerto Ricans, not to the whites, not to the blacks, not to the Palestinians, not to the Jews, and not even to my own mother, who I made fun of during the set. So not even the man's own mama is going to get an apology. Let's go to hear more of what Tony Hinchcliffe had to say.
And I apologize to absolutely nobody. Not to the Puerto Ricans, not to the whites, not to the blacks, not to the Palestinians, not to the Jews.
There it is. Is there anybody that he missed that he's not going to fucking apologize to? That's right. You're not going to get your apology. So take your white liberal guilt and just take that shit to wherever Rob Reiner is hiding right now, because Tony Hinchcliffe's a comedian and he's not going to apologize for making jokes. He went on to say, hey, look, maybe booking an insult comic for an event like that, was it the best decision? I don't know. But was it really that bad? Listen, if you grew up in the 70s and 80s, you remember comedians on network television saying shit worse than that literally almost every day of your entire life. It was a joke. And the Puerto Rican people don't seem to have a big problem with Tony Hinchcliffe because they understand it was a joke. What happened to the days in this country when you could make fun of everybody, including yourself, including your own dear poor mother, as Tony points out? And people need to be able to shake it off. Look, maybe the number one thing that people need to figure out how to do in this society is shake it the fuck off. You should have listened to Taylor Swift on that. I don't know if you want her advice on who to vote for, but when she said shake it off, she knew what the fuck she was talking about. So shake it off a little bit. It's just a joke. Go to your safe space, have some milk and cookies. If you don't have a safe space or any milk and cookies, I'm sure you could go to any Ivy League school in this country right now, and somebody there will be ready with a coloring book, crayons, and something for you to eat while you relax and try to overcome the shaken nervous system that you have because you heard somebody tell a joke. Is a joke. All right, with that said, let's keep talking about the fallout of this election. And one of the things that is the fallout of this election is Donald Trump is the president-elect of the United States, and he is starting to fill some of his cabinet positions. Pete Hegseth named the Secretary of Defense just yesterday by Donald Trump. Of course, there's a process that you have to go through. Elizabeth Warren is already objecting to this, and so are other people. Yes, it's not official, it's not final until you go through the confirmation process. But Donald Trump picking Fox's own Pete Hegseth to take over that very important role. And here's a tweet you can see by Lauren Lee on X saying, I feel like I'm watching the NFL draft. I've never seen this level of public interest in cabinet picks. Usually it's just the DC elite squabbling over who gets what. The rest of the country doesn't really care. But whatever's happening, it's not politics as usual. Something is changing. The people are awake. And let's go to Pete Hegseth, the presumptive Secretary of Defense of the United States, once he goes through the process that, let's face it, considering who's in charge now, he ought to be approved. Let's see what he had to say about why the woke and why the establishment are so threatened by him.
In 2016, I was under consideration by Trump to be his VA secretary.
Nice.
I was interviewed multiple times. In fact, I was down to the final two. And, go up to Trump Tower, up the elevator, sit with him, talk about it. And ultimately, I think he thought I was a little young and all that. But I remember he called me at one point in the process, and he said, Pete, I want to pick you. I want to pick you, but there's one problem. Why do all the veterans groups hate you? And I sort of laughed. And he goes, no, but they hate you. And I'm like, well, Mr. President, let me tell you why. Because outside the box thinking of, say, providing private choice for veterans is a threat, complete threat to the ecosystem around the government bureaucracy and the VA and the veterans groups. They exist to defend their territory. And they'll say, oh, it's for the betterment of the vets. Well, what if vets are getting better treatment from non-conventional places? Why aren't we exploring that? Well, the bureaucracy can't handle that. Well, it's not the existing system. It's not where most of the money comes from.
So Pete Hegseth saying that he's got a lot of people that are suspicious of him because he's got ideas that are outside of the box. Let me go now to the international streaming star who joins me as always from Nashville, Tennessee, Ronnie T-Shirts. Ronnie, I know that you like this guy.
I do.
You and I are both watching these cabinet appointments with great interest, as the tweet indicated. It feels a little bit different this time than in the past. What do you make of Hegseth, and how excited are you about finding out that Trump is going to go with him to be the Secretary of Defense?
Well, man, it's not just that he's going with Pete Hegseth. It's that Trump is going with who he wants. He's not going with, like the one tweet said, just a bunch of Washington insiders just kind of infighting to figure out who's going to get these jobs. I love the fact that we're going to have people in the cabinet that are outside the box thinkers. And the reason there's all this blowback is because, like Pete said, man, it terrifies the bureaucracy because they're not going to get what they've gotten forever. And that terrifies them. People are bitching and complaining about Hegseth being the nominee. Isn't it better that we have some guy that went to Princeton and Harvard, served in the military, has written tons of books? He's like a really smart dude. Isn't it better to have him than some DEI appointments like we've had in the last administration, where people were just getting nominated based on their sexuality or their skin color or their religion or whatever? So I'm all for it. I'm excited. I'm excited every day when I jump on Twitter or X. Sorry, Elon. When I jump on X and there's just something new and exciting that is just not the status quo. And that to me is what's exciting. So whether this works out or not, we will find out in 2, 3, 4 years. But I do know what would happen if we keep doing what we've been doing forever. And that's exactly what we have. So I'm all for it, Ricky.
2 Bronze Stars, 2 Army Commendation Medals, multiple deployments overseas. Look, I like the fact that the guy's not an establishment figure. You can 100%. See where establishment figures have gotten this country. So maybe it's time to bring somebody in who sees it with a different pair of eyes, who's not locked into the orthodoxy, somebody that's going to be willing to go in there and say, hey, look, but this isn't going to be the same song and dance that we've seen over and over and over again. I'm going to do things a different way. I think we could use some different way in this country.
Yeah. Hey, Ricky, the one thing that I'm actually really excited about with Hegseth is his anti-woke stance on the military. Listen, I understand there actually is being woke is sometimes necessary in other aspects of life because it kind of moves you forward. I mean, not to the extent that it is, but I do understand why sometimes we need to expand our thinking a little bit on how we approach things. But the military is not the place for being woke. And the fact that he's going in there and he is going to eliminate woke, progressive generals and lieutenants and whoever, that to me is exciting because, it feels to me like the world looks at our military and they kind of think it's a joke right now because a lot of the times you'll see some of the advertisements or you see some of the stuff on social media with how inclusive and diverse the military is. That's not what matters when you're fighting, man. What matters is can you kick somebody's ass? And we need somebody that's going to prioritize kicking somebody's ass.
Well said, Ronnie. I mean, look, protecting the country is what the role of the military is. I don't think it was ever to check every box that made everybody get up into their feelings and feel great about everything. I don't think that has ever been the purpose. The purpose is protect our interests, protect our citizens, help make this place safe, this country that we love. And if you do that, Everything else to me is very secondary to that. And I think somewhere along the way, we lost that, or at least the left lost that. And it became much more about DEI type stuff than actually what matters, which is how do we have the strongest, most prepared military, which is all I care about, Ron. It's all I care about.
Yeah, here's my prediction for you, Ricky, is the past, I guess it's been the past 2, 3, 4 years, the number of people volunteering for the military has been way, way down. Like recruitment has been terrible. I think you're going to see a drastic increase in the number of people that are excited and want to serve for this administration. So it's my prediction. We'll see what happens.
I would expect that the morale of the United States Armed Forces is going to go up, quite honestly. And that is not something that we should sleep on either, because I think that's very healthy. What else I think is very healthy right now, Ronnie, is to look at America's poll of the day. Shall we? Over at Super 70 Sports on X, where I have teed up 4 options for the American public once again, as we do every weekday. And Ronnie, today the options are, I kind of lifted a little bit from you. I took one of yours, I reappropriated one of yours, I added a couple of mine, I tweaked some stuff. You're going to look at this. I probably fucked it up, Ron, is mostly what I did. I've got Tears for Fears. You had suggested everybody wants to rule the world. Unfortunately, there's just too many characters to get that into a poll. So I changed it to Tears for Fears just so that I could include it in the poll. We were way too many characters with that song. I know. I'll
keep that in mind on my next suggestion.
Yes. Please remember that there is a character limitation on the platform, Ronnie. The second choice is poker. You had sent me blackjack. I thought that poker might fare a little better than blackjack. I may be wrong in that, but I tried to strengthen it up a little bit. Troy Aikman is yours. And in honor of Greg Garcia, big Burt Reynolds fan, being on the program today, I went ahead and I included Smokey and the Bandit as the fourth option. So,
that
Ronnie,
one's too
as
strong.
always,
Smokey and the Bandit's too strong.
I worry a little bit. Yeah, I worry that Smokey and the Bandit is too strong.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like this is going to be a 2-horse race between Smokey and the Bandit and Tears for Fears.
Yep,
is my concern,
agree.
Ron.
I agree. I understand why you did it, and I think it's admirable that you tipped your hat to Greg. So I'm okay with that. But way too strong, man. Like that thing is going to run away with today, and it will run away with it on Friday.
Maybe I should have just put Cannonball Run, and that would have at least mitigated some of the potential damage here. I'm going to vote for, I'm going to vote for Tears for Fears.
That's what I voted for.
How about that?
That's what I voted for.
How about that? I love Smokey and the Bandit, but I don't watch it as often as I listen to Tears for Fears. So I'm going to go for Tears for Fears. I don't know what producer Tim is going to do, but there's only one way to find out.
Ricky,
Songs
from the Big Chair is one of the best CDs of the 80s.
It's so well produced, Ron. It's just so well produced. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah, nobody to blame but myself. The problem, Ron, is that I forget until the morning to do it. And then I'm prepping this show. And so I just have to throw something together because I got to get ready to host a program. And sometimes it's hard to really get into that zone where you're chasing the quadruple 25, Ronnie.
Yeah, I understand why you put Smokey and the Bandit, but I do think if you would have put the one that I put, I think it would have been a little bit more even. I had Christmas Vacation, which is good, but it's not Smokey and the Bandit level. So, but I understand why you did it.
Smokey and the Bandit, it's a problem. Hey, I got to be honest, but here's a tweet. What am I tweeting? That's a nice segue here. Smokey and the Bandit somehow only has a 78% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Ron. Do you go to Rotten Tomatoes to consult what the ratings are when you're deciding whether or not you want to possibly watch a movie? Does that weigh into your decision at all?
I don't go to the actual Rotten Tomatoes website, but I will look at, a lot of times the movies already have it's Rotten Tomatoes and somebody else. I can't remember what it is. It might be the IMDb rating. I don't know. I generally think that the lower the rating from like the heavy critics, the better the movie's going to be. Because, the real critics are just uptight. They don't like to laugh.
Do you like to look more at the audience ratings or the critic ratings, the expert ratings? Because Rotten Tomatoes has both.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's a huge disconnect between audience and critics.
Yeah, no, I'd much, if I have to choose, I go audience. Because I think I'm pretty much every man. I'm not extreme in my likes or dislikes that much. So I kind of think that I fall into place with, for God's sake, man.
Movie critics are the fucking worst, Ron. They're the fucking worst.
They really are.
Like what? Like they know better what's good than you and I do. I hate these movies that you'll see one occasionally. It's like 93% critics, and then it'll be 38% audience.
Oh, dude.
And it seems to me like it's virtue signaling from the critics. They're just trying to let you know how much smarter they are than you and how they get it. And this is art. And I'm like, hey, I don't think it's any fucking good. And I don't think I should have to apologize or feel like I'm lacking in culture because I watch your precious little art house movie and I thought that it blew.
Listen, man. If I see if I see a movie won an Oscar, I'm not watching that movie. Is basically that's kind of my bar. Is if the movie won an Oscar, then I'm not going to watch the movie. Give me Superbad, give me Old School, give me Shawshank, which might have won an Oscar. Give me Top Gun. Entertain me, man. I don't need to think and feel when I'm watching a movie. I need to be entertained, Ricky.
You just want to know how many AVN awards it won. Those are the only awards that matter to you.
Have you ever seen highlights of those? It's so fantastic. Like they'll give the best deep throat, and then the person they'll read off the names, and then that person will come up and take. It's fantastic that they act like it's the regular.
I saw one. It was like best gangbang scene or something, and the girl is up there thanking her family. Can you imagine sitting in the crowd or watching at home as the dad just like thinking, "Oh, sweetheart, that was wonderful."
First, I want to thank God.
Look at this. First I want to thank God for giving me the ability to do it. It was really more than I thought that I could handle, but I prayed my way through it, and somehow I was delivered. Here's another tweet. It's Burt Reynolds Day here on the program. I said, I feel like there's an 86% chance that that's Burt Reynolds in that costume. And if you're even noticing the rabbit, America and other countries around the world that are watching this, Dolly Parton, right around that era, Dolly Parton was a fine looking woman, was she not?
You saw her in that Dallas Cowboy cheerleader outfit last year. You'd still do it.
Listen, Dolly is 83% plastic at this point. I don't know what's going on.
What's your point? What's your point?
I don't know, Ron. Let's talk about LSU and the live tiger. Your college football, you're always following college football. You got to have an opinion on this. The governor of Louisiana wanted a goddamn live tiger right there at the game, so he imported one from Florida. And there the tiger was. It didn't help Alabama winning in Death Valley anyway, but the governor's saying our live tiger, unfortunately, disappointingly, was the only tiger who showed up on Saturday. And I'm sorry. He wanted to reignite the tradition, I guess, Ron, that was abandoned, I believe, in 2015 of having a live tiger there. Pat McAfee had more to say on this. Let's take a listen to what McAfee had to say.
Learned a pretty good amount about Governor Jeff Landry in Friday night dinner, and this guy needs to be learned about. Mm-hmm. This dude is wide open down there. Now he has his supporters,
no doubt,
as it should,
and he represents his constituents. But he also has his feelings about what LSU games should look like and feel like, and just getting a chance to be there, a part of the whole. First time since 2015. Live tiger. Yeah. And then allegedly, university, we're okay without one, without a live tiger. We got one right outside here in the sanctuary. We got this figured out. Good air conditioning on the rocks. We got the whole thing. Able to do this, it's a sanctuary.
All right, Ron, here's where I come down on this. I think there should be a live version of every mascot on the sideline for every game. Whatever your team name is, you ought to have one of those things on your sideline. Ron, where do you stand on the importance of having a live goddamn tiger at home games for LSU?
Well, I can imagine how much better it would be for, like, say, Penn State to have a live Nittany Lion on the sidelines instead of that middle school raggy looking costume that they have. But I don't know, man. Having pets kind of makes me probably a little bit soft. I can't imagine that tiger is really enjoying himself being in that little enclosure.
No.
And I'm sorry. Like, I can't, like, I see this stuff through the eyes of my pets now, and maybe I'm soft and I don't really give a shit what people think, but I don't just like the Mike the Tiger thing, like his sanctuary. I've seen it. It's pretty expansive and pretty nice. Of course, it's not the Serengeti, but that cage in front of people screaming, that just can't be good for that tiger. So I'm not for it.
That's why they abandoned it, Ron. And look, in all seriousness, I agree with you. That tiger in that confined space in such a loud environment where there's all kinds of noisy things happening, I don't think it's good for the animal. I remember years ago, I saw some little shitty traveling circus that was set up in the parking lot of a mall in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Yeah, this is back when I was probably about 11 or 12. And they had little monkeys in cages, and it was so fucking hot. Just the heat coming up off of the asphalt. And it was just, I felt so bad for the animals. I guarantee you, this is the early 80s. I bet you every ethical standard of the way that those animals should be treated was being violated in some way. And I just went away from it feeling sad. So I don't think you necessarily need a live fucking tiger on the sideline in order to play a game. I had tweeted some time ago, back in the 1920s, and I don't know if they've done it more recently, but back in the 1920s, Michigan would have live wolverines on the sideline that they kept stored in a cage. And really, do we need to go that far? That's why we put humans inside dumb costumes, isn't it, Ronnie?
It is. I mean, again, you can tell a lot about a person about how they, and believe me, I am no PETA guy, because I think PETA is just extreme. They're insane, extreme, radical, whatever they are. But I think you can tell a lot about a person by how they think and treat animals. And I just, again, that tiger in a cage that's not much bigger than he is, in front of, I mean, LSU is one of the most raucous crowds in the country, if not the most. It's so loud there, and it can't be a pleasant experience for that tiger. So I think it's again, I don't care what people think. Like, I don't think it should be done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ron. I really do. Let's take a look at what else I'm tweeting, shall we? over at Super 70 Sports on X. I know we've already looked at a couple of tweets, but let's take a look here. Here's one. Okay, honey, almost ready. Did you remember to pack your bags and line up the children in the most dangerous fucking situation possible for when I'm barreling down the highway at 80 miles per hour? Yes, dear, of course. Then let's hit the road. Seat belts, Ronnie. I did not wear a seatbelt when I was a kid. I know my mother is probably ashamed of that now. And certainly standards have changed. All of my children, I always made sure that everyone was buckled before I got out on the road. But we are of a different generation, Ron. And I never wore seatbelts when I was a kid. Did you?
Yeah, we actually, if there were seatbelts in the car, it's one of the things that my dad really was. He was really safety conscious. And so we actually did wear seatbelts if it was in the car. But I know that we had cars that didn't. You and I talked about this on the show before. Dude, car seats for babies, I think we were just on the front seat, weren't we? And mom did the with her hand. If like something happened, that was our safety, was our mom's arm.
My safety belt was my mom's arm, dude.
Yeah. How about
if
this?
She missed me, she just had to pull me out of the floorboard and put me back up in the passenger seat.
Yeah,
because I used to ride to the grocery. I don't remember this, but I used to ride to the grocery when I was a toddler, standing in the passenger seat, Ron.
Of course,
that seems like a great idea. Tremendous parenting by my mom, but here I am. So fuck all y'all. Yeah. I made it.
So you being from the hills of Kentucky, you probably saw this a ton, and you probably did it. Riding in the back of an open pickup truck. Holy shit, is that dangerous?
Oh yeah. That was common, man. That was pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember riding in the back of a pickup truck all the way to Tennessee one time with my grandfather driving.
That's insane.
And I'm just going down the highway at 75 miles an hour. Just let's hope that nothing goes wrong today. It didn't even feel like it was risky at the time. We didn't have sense enough, I guess, to realize how dangerous the world was. But I promise you, if you were alive at the time, I mean, your dad probably was an exception in actually being that safe, or at least back in Kentucky, we hadn't gotten the memo yet that the seatbelts were for more than decoration. I used to think that the seatbelts mostly existed just to, I'd burn my legs on those metal buckles
on the vinyl seats
on a summer day. And the vinyl seats, my mom had a Chevrolet with vinyl seats. You'd go out there, if you were wearing shorts, you'd fry, and then God forbid that your leg caught one of the metal buckles, because that really would burn you.
Oh, you'd get branded.
Yeah, you get branded just like cattle.
Yeah, I don't know where my dad, all this safety stuff for my dad, because I vividly remember people riding around in pickup trucks, and my dad unequivocally saying, I better never see you in the back of a pickup truck. So I don't know where he got it from. I mean, he was in the Air Force, so I don't know if something there. I don't know. But and I am a big safety person. I'm a big use it as it's intended kind of guy. Like, you don't use chairs to reach high things, like, or stools. Like, I don't know. It's one thing he passed down to me.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com, where you can watch the full episode.